I bought you a house, right? My mom's words echoed in the living room like a lie wrapped in silk.
No.
I bought this house. With my own hands, my own sacrifices, my own endless nights of work. But when I walked in, there she was, my mother, arms stretched like a realtor, guiding my brother's wife through the hallways as if she owned every wall, every beam, every breath inside it. And this, she announced proudly, opening the French doors to the backyard, will be perfect for family barbecues. I stood frozen in the doorway. My name is Diana Monroe, 32 years old. And if you think the story is about a house, you're wrong. This is about what happens when trust is stolen brick by brick, and how betrayal doesn't come with warning sirens. It comes with a smile. Tell me, what do you do when the people who raised you decide your life belongs to them? I smiled, waited for them to leave, and pretended not to notice how my mother's eyes flickered when she realized I was standing there. That night, I changed every lock. The house didn't just reject them. It didn't even recognize their touch anymore. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, my phone lit up with a flood of missed calls.
Mom.
Then Dad. Then my brother's wife. Each voicemail sounded like a performance, dripping with entitlement and anger. Diana, what's this nonsense? We couldn't get in. Call me back. Sweetheart, don't be dramatic. We've always shared everything as a family. Keys, cars, bank accounts. It's no different with this house. And then, my brother's wife, her voice smug, almost rehearsed. You really think you can keep it to yourself? It's ours too. Everyone knows your mother paid for it. That line nearly made me laugh out loud. Paid for it? My mother hadn't paid a single dime. I still remembered working 3 jobs, sleeping in my car, missing meals just to make the first down payment. I was the one who signed the mortgage papers, who wired every installment, who sacrificed friendships and love for a dream they now wanted to strip away in a single evening tour. By noon, I decided to test something. I pulled up the home security app on my phone. The footage from the night before was crystal clear. My mother's smile as she swung open the door, her voice proudly telling them, "Welcome to our new home." My brother's wife twirling in the kitchen like she already owned it. I saved the clips. Something told me I'd need them later. At 2 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Hard. Demanding. I peeked through the camera and saw them. Mom, Dad, and my brother's wife, all standing there, glaring at the locked door like it had betrayed them. I pressed mute on my phone, silenced every ring, and whispered to myself, "No, this time, I won't open the door." That silence was my first act of revenge. By evening, their patience had run dry. I sat by the window, sipping coffee, as their voices rose outside like a storm. My mother's shrill tone pierced through the air. "Diana, you're embarrassing this family. Open the door now." My brother's wife added fuel. "She's acting like a child. This house should have been ours anyway. Mom said so." I let their words hang in the air, savoring every syllable of entitlement. For years, I had been their punching bag. The forgotten daughter, the scapegoat, the one they could humiliate at birthdays, weddings, dinners, always reminding me I wasn't good enough. But this house was mine. My blood, sweat, and sacrifice were in every corner of it. And they hated that truth. Around 7 p.m., Dad tried a softer approach. His voice, calm but rehearsed. "Sweetheart, let's talk this out. Families don't keep secrets. Families don't lock each other out." That line cut me deeper than they realized. Families don't keep secrets? My entire childhood had been a web of their lies. They had hidden money, hidden affairs, hidden favoritism, always leaving me in the dark until I stumbled upon the wreckage. I muted the security camera so I wouldn't hear them anymore. Instead, I walked through each room slowly, running my fingers along the walls, breathing in the peace that came with ownership. For the first time in my life, I had something they couldn't taint. But the silence didn't last long. At 9:14 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't them. It was my lawyer. His voice was steady, sharp. "Diana, you were right to save that footage. We may need it. Because your mother just tried to file an ownership claim." I froze. My hands tightened around the phone. The war had officially begun. Sleep never came that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, the glow of my laptop illuminating the lawyer's email. Attached were documents my mother had filed, claims that she had partially funded the down payment for my house, therefore entitling her to shared ownership. It was laughable. I had bank statements, transfer receipts, and years of tax records proving every cent was mine. Still, the audacity made my chest burn. By sunrise, the family group chat was buzzing. Screenshots, half-truths, twisted stories. She's stolen from us. She tricked Mom. She doesn't even deserve that house. They painted me as a thief. The same daughter they once mocked for being too broke, too stupid, too plain was now, in their eyes, a cunning manipulator who had somehow outsmarted them. At 8 a.m., I stepped outside for the first time since changing the locks. My brother was parked across the street, glaring at me like I was a criminal. His wife leaned over the dashboard, snapping photos of my home, like it was evidence. I didn't flinch. I simply waved and walked back inside. By noon, my lawyer called again. Diana, their claim won't stand. But we need to be smart. Keep every text, every voicemail. Don't engage directly. But ignoring them was harder than it sounded. At 3:47 p.m., my phone lit up with a voicemail from my mother. Her voice, brittle yet venomous. You think you've won? You're still nothing without this family. Don't forget where you came from. That house will be ours. I replayed it 3 times. Not because it hurt, but because it reminded me. They had spent years underestimating me. Now they were about to realize just how dangerous silence could be. The next morning, I brewed coffee and opened my curtains wide, letting the sunlight flood every corner of my living room. My house. My walls. My sanctuary. Across the street, my brother's car was gone, but the feeling of being watched lingered like smoke. I checked my security cameras, tiny red dots blinking from every angle. I had installed them quietly months before, not out of paranoia, but out of instinct. Now they felt prophetic. By noon, the footage delivered its first gift. My mother and brother had been on my porch the night before, whispering as they tried to pry open the lock with some sort of tool. Their silhouettes were clear, their muttered curses sharper than glass. I forwarded the clip to my lawyer without hesitation. He called almost instantly, his voice a mixture of outrage and admiration. Diana, this isn't just harassment anymore. It's attempted breaking and entering. If you want, we can press charges. I hesitated, fingers tapping the kitchen counter. Pressing charges would ignite a war. But then again, hadn't they already started one? By evening, the whispers spread wider. My aunt called, pretending to check in. Within 2 minutes she was asking, "Sweetheart, maybe you should just let them use the house for a little while. You don't want to tear the family apart, do you?" I laughed so hard I startled her. Tear the family apart? They had ripped me from it years ago. All I had done was finally lock the door they'd always walked through. As the sun set, I walked through each room of my house, touching the walls, the windows, the door frames. I wasn't just protecting 4 walls. I was protecting the only thing I had built without their claws in it. And this time I swore they wouldn't take it back. 2 days later, the confrontation I knew was coming finally arrived. I was pruning the roses by my front steps when their car screeched into the driveway. My mother got out first, dressed like she was headed to brunch, not battle. My brother's wife followed, her designer bag slung over her arm like she owned the place. And then my brother, jaw clenched, eyes locked on me with a mixture of rage and entitlement. "Open the door, Diana," Mom ordered, her tone sharp as glass. "This is a family home, and you're being selfish." I calmly clipped a dead rose stem and dropped it into the basket at my feet. "This is my home, bought with my money. If you wanted a family home, you should have bought one yourselves." His wife scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You don't even need this place. You're just being spiteful." Spiteful. The word rang in my ears like a church bell. Spiteful was watching them laugh at me when I couldn't pay my tuition. Spiteful was Mom telling relatives I'd never amount to anything. Spiteful was pretending I didn't exist until suddenly I owned something they wanted. My brother stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. If you don't give us a key, we'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I tilted my head, a slow smile spreading. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held up the video, clear footage of them attempting to break into my house. The blood drained from their faces in unison. You think you can intimidate me? I whispered. The locks aren't the only thing that changed. I'm not the same girl you used to trample on. Their silence told me they finally understood. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of fear, but out of the adrenaline rush of finally standing my ground. For years, I had been the one tiptoeing around them, begging for scraps of love, of validation, of belonging. Now, the roles had shifted, and they knew it. At 9:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. We're family. Stop this nonsense. Give us the keys, and no one else needs to know. Seconds later, another text from my brother's wife. You'll regret this, Diana. Don't test us. I just stared at the screen, my lips curving into a smirk. Regret? They had no idea what regret even looked like. I opened my laptop and drafted a simple email. Attached were the video clips of their attempted break-in, along with screenshots of the texts they had just sent me, thinly veiled threats. The subject line was short, sharp, and surgical, for record-keeping. I blind copied it to the neighborhood association, my lawyer, and a contact at the local paper who'd been sniffing around for stories about the respectable family my mother always bragged about. When I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my chest. Years of humiliation, years of being treated like the family shadow, evaporated with one click. By morning, I knew the calls would start. Desperate ones. Angry ones. Maybe even tearful ones. But it didn't matter. Because for the first time, the truth was no longer locked inside me. It was out there, alive and breathing, and it would do what I never could. Make them accountable. And deep down, I wondered, would they even dare show their faces in public again? The next morning came with chaos. My phone lit up before sunrise. Missed calls from my mother, frantic voicemails from my brother, even a shaky text from his wife begging me to take everything down. But the chain had already been set in motion. By 8 a.m., my lawyer confirmed the video evidence and threats were securely filed. By noon, the neighborhood group chat was buzzing with whispers. And by evening, the article hit the local paper. Prominent family under scrutiny for fraud and harassment. Their empire of appearances, carefully polished for decades, cracked overnight. My mother, who once paraded me as her shame, was now trending online as a liar. My brother's wife, who had sneered at me from my own porch, was suddenly the face of entitlement in the community. And me? I didn't even have to lift another finger. That evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee. I watched their car pull up, saw them hesitate at the locked gate. They didn't dare step out this time. My mother's eyes found mine, pleading, but I felt nothing. No rage, no hurt, no longing. Just clarity. I stood, walked to the gate, and said calmly, "You erased me for years. Now the world sees who you really are. This house, this piece, it's mine. And you'll never control it again." Their faces broke, but I didn't stay to watch. I turned, closed the door behind me, and let silence answer them. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten child, the family embarrassment, or the one left in shadows. I was free. She snatched the iPhone out of Lily's hand and slammed its screen first into the marble cake. The room fell silent, frosting, shattered glass, and gasps frozen mid-laugh. My daughter's sweet 16 died right there in that bakery-rented room, under pink streamers and cheap disco lights. My name is Rachel Monroe, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever looked at your own family and wondered if they were secretly rooting against you? My sister, Vanessa, stood there, smug, righteous, a glass of rose in one hand, a fake apology forming behind her teeth. Lily's face crumpled, silent, too stunned to cry. I stepped forward, fists clenched, But my mother's shrill voice pierced through the tension. Rachel, don't escalate. Escalate? 10 minutes later, 2 cops walked in. Not for Vanessa. For Lily. Disorderly conduct, the officer muttered, as if we were in a bar fight. Not a birthday. Vanessa, ever the drama queen, sobbed on cue. She told them my daughter attacked her over a simple misunderstanding. I stood in front of Lily, shielding her, but then my father handed over a signed witness statement. So did my mother. They'd backed her story. They let my daughter get cuffed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I did one thing. I walked over to Lily as they read her rights, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Don't worry, baby. I promise you they're gonna pay." The officer hesitated. Maybe something in my voice chilled him. They took her away anyway. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the family portrait above the fireplace, the same one we took at Vanessa's wedding. I remembered how Lily was the flower girl. I remembered how I paid for half that wedding. I remembered everything. In the morning, I filed for temporary emancipation for Lily. I used every legal thread I had from my old paralegal days. But that was just the beginning. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to post. I was going to destroy every lie they ever built from the inside. And 3 months later, my mother couldn't sleep, my father was vomiting in the church parking lot, and my sister was knee-deep in coffee grounds sorting trash in a county jumpsuit. But we're not there yet. This isn't about revenge. It's about making truth undeniable, one broken lie at a time. 3 days after the arrest, Lily's charges were dropped, quietly. No apology. No correction. Just dropped. But her name still sat in the juvenile system like a bruise that wouldn't fade. She'd stopped speaking. Barely ate. And every time the doorbell rang, her shoulders flinched. I knew I couldn't fix it with hugs. Not this. I needed something bigger, surgical, permanent. I started with the police report. My sister's version had been signed by both my parents. They claimed Lily had thrown the phone and lunged. I requested the venue's security footage through a lawyer friend. Turns out the camera caught everything. The smash, Vanessa's smirk, and Lily's stunned silence. No lunge. No throw. Just a 16-year-old girl watching her life fracture in real time. I made 4 copies. 1 went into a safe deposit box. 1 to my lawyer. 1 to Lily's school counselor because my daughter didn't need rumors shadowing her college dreams. And the last one? That went to Vanessa's job. See, she worked as a youth behavioral therapist. Yes, therapist. And I knew her office. Knew her boss. Knew her boss's boss, who once flirted with me shamelessly at a fundraiser. I scheduled a meeting, shared the footage, then leaned in and said, if she can lie this easily about a child, imagine what else she's capable of. Her boss didn't blink. He just nodded, grim, slow, like a man watching a building tilt before the collapse. She was put on immediate suspension. Vanessa exploded, of course. Called my phone 32 times in one night. Left voice messages like, "You vindictive psycho," and "You're ruining my life over a phone?" No, Vanessa. Not over a phone. Over my daughter. But the best part was this. The voicemail she left, the one where she admitted, "I didn't think it'd go this far. I was just trying to scare her," was recorded automatically. Guess who I sent that to? Yep. Her employer. And the detective handling the original case. Meanwhile, my parents? Silent. But their guilt was starting to rot them. I could smell it in their hesitation, in the just checking in texts, in the flowers they left on my porch like cowards' confessions. Too late. They picked their side. And I was just getting started. Some lies bruise. Others bleed when you pull them out slow. It was my father who cracked first. He showed up on my porch in a worn jacket that still smelled like his garage. The same man who'd signed that report like he was approving a damn grocery list now stood with a tremble in his lip, holding a box of apple fritters like a peace offering. I didn't invite him in. He looked past me, hoping to catch a glimpse of Lily. She here? I didn't answer. He set the box down like it meant something. We didn't know it would go that far. We thought. You thought siding with Vanessa would keep the peace, I said. But peace built on betrayal isn't peace. It's rot. He looked like I'd punched him. I'll testify, he whispered. I'll tell them she made us lie. Your mother was scared. She was silent. I said, silence is a choice. And I shut the door. But he'd already given me something, confirmation that the report was coerced. I took that to my lawyer, and together, we drafted a formal request to the DA's office to reopen the investigation, this time with new evidence, the surveillance footage, Vanessa's voicemail, and now my father's confession. But I didn't stop there. I dug deeper. I found out Vanessa had been using our parents' address for tax purposes, despite living in a high-rise condo across town.
Fraud.
I printed it all. Receipts.
Statements.
Even a Christmas card she'd accidentally sent to her real address. Meanwhile, I enrolled Lily in therapy. A new school, too. Somewhere her name didn't echo in the hallways. I sold my engagement ring, the one I'd kept in a box for 8 years like a stupid souvenir of pain, and used the money to pay for everything up front. Every time Vanessa's world cracked, Lily smiled a little more. But poetic justice isn't poetry without rhythm. So, I timed my next move perfectly. The day before Vanessa's reinstatement hearing at work, her boss received a full anonymous package, detailed evidence of tax fraud, and the real story of what happened to Lily. I made sure it arrived with a timestamp, a paper trail, unignorable. By sunset, Vanessa's hearing was canceled. Her job? Terminated. No severance. And my favorite part? The silence. No calls.
No threats.
Just silence. Revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and lets the silence choke them slowly. The first time Vanessa called me after losing her job, she didn't scream.
She begged.
Her voice was hoarse, like she'd already spent hours screaming into pillows or empty wine bottles. Rachel, she rasped, I know I went too far, but you're destroying my life. I didn't say a word, just let the silence sit. She filled it like a coward always does. It was just supposed to scare her. Lily was always spoiled. You let her act like a little queen. That was it. That was her reason. I hung up. Later that week, I found out Vanessa had moved back in with our parents. The condo?
Gone.
Leased out to cover legal debts. She'd tried applying at 3 different clinics. I'd sent a dossier to all of them, no lies, just facts. The kind of facts that made people rethink handing a title to a woman who crushed a teenager's birthday and called it therapy. But the best part wasn't her unemployment. It was what came next, because truth has momentum. And now it was crashing down the family tree. My father's church board found out about the false report he signed, thanks to an anonymous packet dropped in their suggestion box. It included the footage, the signed statement, a note. Is this who you want speaking for your community? By Sunday, his name was quietly removed from the website. His role as deacon suspended pending review. My mother cried in the pews while the sermon went on like nothing had happened. And Lily? She painted again. She filled canvas after canvas with wild reds and violent streaks of cobalt, said she felt like her insides were finally moving again. Her therapist said the anger was turning into expression. Good. Anger is holy when it moves. I watched as Lily laughed in the kitchen one night, eating cereal at 1 a.m., feet tapping to some awful TikTok song. I hadn't seen her that light in months. And it hit me, this wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was reclamation. Piece by piece, I was taking our peace back from the people who sold it like cheap furniture. And they were cracking under the weight of their own guilt. You don't need to set fire to a house to watch it collapse. Sometimes all you do is pull out one nail at a time. They showed up together this time, my mother and Vanessa, like 2 ghosts pretending to still be flesh. I was repotting Lily's succulents on the porch when they pulled up. Vanessa wore sunglasses too big for her face. My mother clutched a handbag like it held dignity instead of receipts. We just want to talk, my mother said, stepping forward. No, I said calmly, brushing dirt from my palms. You want relief. But that's not the same. Vanessa took off her glasses. Her eyes were bloodshot. I lost everything, Rachel. my job, my license. You lost your mask. I cut in. There's a difference. She tried again. I'm family. I stood. So is Lily. And you tried to get her arrested. The silence that followed stretched thin and sharp. My mother opened her mouth like she wanted to play the peacemaker, but I wasn't interested in fiction anymore. I dropped out of my therapy program, Vanessa mumbled. Can't get hired anywhere. I'm applying to work at a recycling plant downtown. They pay by the hour. I sort garbage. I looked at her, finally. Her nails were bitten down. She couldn't meet my eyes. Sounds honest, I said. Maybe the most honest thing you've ever done. That stung. She winced. I was jealous, she said suddenly, almost involuntarily, of how much you loved her, of how close you two were. There it was, the black root beneath every cut. She got the love I always wanted from you, Vanessa whispered to our mother. And you gave it to Rachel instead. My mother blinked like someone seeing smoke where there should have been air. I didn't say anything, just watched them unravel in real time. Guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't rot in the dark. It blossoms. Louder. Uglier. Until even liars can't outrun the noise. They left without another word. Later that night, I got a message on Facebook. A girl named Marissa, mid-20s, said she'd once had Vanessa as a youth therapist.
Said she wanted to share some things.
She used the words inappropriate conversations and gaslighting. My breath caught. This wasn't just about Lily anymore.
It was a pattern.
And Vanessa wasn't just my problem. She was a risk. The revenge I started for my daughter was now turning into something bigger. Not just justice. Protection. From a woman who'd worn sisterhood like a costume and used it to tear lives apart. Marissa met me at a coffee shop off 9th and Green, a quiet spot with humming fridges and employees too bored to eavesdrop. She wore a navy hoodie and kept checking the door like trauma might walk in behind her. I was 13 when I met Vanessa, she said, fingers clenched around a chipped ceramic mug. She was my court-appointed therapist after my foster mom got arrested. She took a long breath. At first she was nice. Too nice. Bought me snacks. Let me skip sessions if I needed a break. But then she started saying weird things like my foster dad probably hated me, or that I was too sensitive to survive in real life. She'd talk about her own childhood, twist the story until I felt guilty for complaining. I listened. I didn't blink, because what she described wasn't therapy. It was conditioning. I tried reporting her once, Marissa continued. Told the county rep that Vanessa made me feel unsafe. But they said she was highly recommended, that I was just being reactive. After that, she'd bring it up constantly. Called me a manipulator. Said no one would ever believe me again. I felt a coldness spread in my chest, not rage. Precision. I asked Marissa if she'd be willing to write a statement. She nodded slowly. If it helps anyone else, yeah. By the end of the week, I had 3 more stories. Former teens, now adults, all willing to talk. Some had been silenced. Some gaslit. One even claimed Vanessa encouraged her to take the blame for something her stepbrother did, to keep the family peace. Same manipulation. Same venom. Different lives. I compiled it all into a dossier. Dates, names, transcripts, copies of therapy notes one girl still had in a drawer like burned letters. Then I sent it directly to the state licensing board. They opened a formal investigation within 72 hours. And just like that, Vanessa's world, already a crumbling tower, lost its last support beam. She was officially barred from practicing. Indefinitely. But that wasn't the part that gutted her. It was when the stories went public. I didn't leak them. I didn't have to. One of the girls posted on TikTok. Her video went viral. Vanessa Monroe told me I deserved the pain I was in. Over 200,000 views in 48 hours. Lily saw it. She looked at me with wide, quiet eyes. She hurt other girls? I nodded. My daughter didn't cry. She just said, good. Not out of cruelty. Out of recognition. Some people don't deserve silence. Some people need their monsters named out loud. I expected her to hide. But Vanessa didn't crawl away. She snapped. She showed up at Lily's school. Not to talk. Not to beg. To scream. Security footage showed her pacing in front of the entrance, shouting about slander, about how she was ruined by a vendetta, about me. She never got inside. The school resource officer intercepted her, but Lily saw it. She called me from the counselor's office, her voice steady but distant. She was shaking. Her mascara was everywhere. My hands clenched around the steering wheel so hard the leather cracked. I didn't drive to the school. I drove to the police station. And I filed for a restraining order on behalf of Lily. Within 24 hours, it was granted. Vanessa was legally forbidden from coming within 300 feet of my daughter. And this time, my mother was the one who called me. She's spiraling, she whispered.
She's not eating.
She said she's being followed online. Tell her to take it up with her victims, I replied. But she's your sister. No, I said. She used to be. The county reached out next. Turns out Vanessa had lied on multiple income disclosures tied to her former practice. She'd received over $8,000 in improper state reimbursements. They weren't just investigating now. They were charging her.
Fraud.
Misconduct.
Perjury.
And in the final twist of fate, Vanessa was offered a choice: plead out and do 6 months of community service plus repayment, or risk a full trial. She took the deal. So, 3 months after smashing Lily's iPhone and calling the cops on her, Vanessa Monroe was sorting garbage in a reflective vest behind the very courthouse that once processed my daughter's arrest. That's where I saw her. Lily and I were walking out of the building after a final hearing to seal her juvenile record permanently. She was free.
Clean.
Vanessa looked up and froze. Our eyes locked. And I didn't smirk. I didn't sneer. I just put my arm around my daughter and walked past her like she was exactly what she'd become. Unimportant. Because the truth was, this was never about revenge anymore. It was about correction. She tried to bury a child with lies. And the world made her dig her way back out, with trash bags and broken pride. Poetic, maybe. But the final chapter hadn't been written yet. Not until I gave my parents one last gift. A gift wrapped in truth. And signed in legal ink. I waited until Christmas Eve. The day our family used to gather, like we weren't splintered bones. When everyone dressed fake, smiled fake, and prayed over food they'd tear each other apart for later. This year there was no dinner. No tree. Just a knock at my parents' front door, and a thick white envelope sliding across their welcome mat. Inside, a formal notice. A civil suit. Filed by me, on behalf of Lily Monroe, minor turned victim, now represented with full legal standing. Charges: defamation, emotional distress, filing of a false police report. Defendants: Vanessa Monroe, Thomas Monroe, and Carol Monroe. That's right. I sued all three. They thought this was over. They thought community service and silent shame was the ending. But justice, real justice, doesn't whisper. It roars. The evidence was airtight. The security footage, the voicemails, the school counselor's report, my father's own confession, and Vanessa's unhinged visit to Lily's school, that sealed it. The best part? My attorney offered a deal. Withdraw the suit if my parents issued a public retraction of the report, a full apology to Lily, and agreed to financial restitution, $25,000 in damages for therapy, schooling, and emotional recovery. They refused. For 2 weeks. Then my father showed up at my door. His hands trembled as he held out a signed, notarized statement. My mother's name shakily printed beneath his own. I was wrong, he whispered. We both were. I didn't take the paper. Lily did. She stood in the doorway, taller now. Clearer. Stronger. She read every line. Then nodded. We accept. I never said a word.
Didn't need to.
The silence was loud enough. And Vanessa? She moved to a studio apartment an hour away.
No job.
No title. No audience. Her name now floats in Reddit threads and whispered DMs, a cautionary tale in teacher groups and youth therapy circles. She will never work with children again. As for Lily, She graduates next spring. Got into Emerson College with a personal essay titled, How My Mother Broke Generational Silence. She paints again. She laughs loud. She lives without fear. And me? I sleep.
Deep.
Unbothered. Because some stories aren't revenge. They're restoration. And some endings don't need exclamation marks. Just quiet, final truth.